Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma aftah alayna hikmataka wanshur alayna min khazaini rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning everyone. Today we are going to learn the second topic of the chapter called interface. Learning interface will require you to understand in details the concept of abstract classes because these topics are having quite similar approach with different implementation in coding. The word interface in this topic is not representing the look and feel of a user interface that is displayed on your monitor screen, but it is more towards the declaration of a Java file which call interface that would be implemented by several other classes. Creating a new interface in Eclipse Editor is not the same as you are creating a new class. However, you have to create a new interface by clicking the File menu, select New, and then click Interface. Then you can name your interface. An interface is like a class constructor that contains only constants and abstract methods, which is methods that only declare by its signature without implementation body. Interface is similar to an abstract class, but an abstract class can contain variables and concrete methods, as well as constants and abstract methods. The following statements illustrates how an interface can be distinguished. An interface is treated like a special class in Java because it contains no implementation. Each interface is compiled into a separate bytecode file which will be used and referred by a program later during its execution. Interface also not allowing you to construct any new instance using the new operator, but you may use interface as a data type for a variable as the result of casting. Okay, now we look into an example. Suppose you want to design a generic method program to find the larger of two objects, such as students, dates, or even a circle objects. One of the big challenge here is that you are supposed to construct a method to compare those objects which might have different ways of implementation. For example, comparing students object is not the same as comparing circles object. And therefore, at the very first place, we have to define a generic compare methods to determine the order of two objects. For example, you can use student ID as the key for comparing students, radius as the key for comparing circles, and volumes as the key to comparing dates. And for this reason, we come out with one good solution, which to define a generic compare to methods as follow. And we call it as a comparable interface. The following statement defines an interface which fall under Java library java.lang package, and to define an interface is just simply to write a public interface and the name of your interface. However, in this example, we are using an implementing interface called comparable, which resided already in Java library. Then we list out all methods that were included in your interface. In this example, comparable interface only contained one method called int compare to method with an object as the parameter. Okay, back to the main program. Most classes in Java library should implement comparable interface to define natural order for the objects. It is a simple process just to add a new keyword implements as shown in the following example with yellow colored text. And we are not going to look into details in this slide, so we go to the next slide. Okay, right guys, the following program illustrates an example of a generic max method which implementing the comparable interface and its compare to method. There are two examples given, a max method with type comparable on the left hand side and another one is of object type on the right hand side. The purpose of this example is to find the maximum value of object given, which might be a string or date. We skip this example for a little while and move to the next slide. Okay, declaring classes to implement comparable. This slide will provide you with some more details on comparable interface. The interface has one method called compare to, which determines how to compare two instances or objects of a class. As you can see in the following statement, compare to methods is an integer type that will require an object as the input parameter. The method will accept objects, so you can pass it an instance or object of any data type, making sure that those comparing objects are within the same data type. We don't want you to compare two different data types like comparing an elephant with a bus or lorry. If there is any data type error or exceptions during the runtime, we can catch and throw a java.lang.class cast exception. And for this, we will learn it in the next chapter. The compare to methods returns 0 if the object passed is equals to the instance or object, and it will return integer or negative integer if the object is greater or smaller than the passed object, respectively. Okay, now we get back to the geometric example. We know that rectangle class is a subclass of geometric object class. According to the question's example, we are required to compare two objects of rectangle and determine which has the bigger area of size. Unfortunately, you cannot use compare to method to compare the rectangle objects because the rectangle class does not implement the comparable interface. And therefore, you can declare a new rectangle class which called comparable in rectangle class that will implement the comparable interface and override the compare to methods. The following program illustrates how we construct comparable rectangle object or instance called rectangle1 and rectangle2 with predefined input value for their height and width. And finally, we have an example program for you to implement in your Eclipse editor. The following program called comparable rectangle extends the rectangle class and implements the comparable interface. If you can observe in the program, it contains compare to methods and override it to compare the size area of two rectangle objects. And next, we have the test comparable class which will construct the rectangle objects with predefined value and invoke the compare to methods before it print out the result of the program. Please do and try this example and understand them. That's all for now, guys. Thank you for watching and listening the video. If you have anything to ask, please do not hesitate to contact me because we are approaching to the end of this chapter. Besides these lecture notes, there are also a lot of related examples you can find from the internet, which you may have them as your additional resources. This is Dr. Azrul. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.